And everything clings to you. All the balloons just start landing on your head.
Yeah, I'm gonna rub my socks on this carpet and then cast Lightning Bolt.
Okay, Alex, so I have Mechanically Speaking for you. Occasionally, I will get notified about different threads that are on, like, Reddit and all of those places. One of the ones that I do follow quite a bit, I think we've talked about a couple of the subjects on it, is DM Academy, and it's mostly about things that happened in D&D specifically, but sometimes they give me some interesting questions about the game itself. And so, without going into the whole Reddit post, basically the question came down with, if I take Lightning Bolt and I shoot it into water, is it going to electrify all the water? The thing about it is that I suppose we would be looking at this a little bit differently if we were talking about actual physics or the game world itself.
Mm-hmm.
But since this is a Mechanically Speaking, I guess what's important to think about right now is, what do you think a damage type like lightning, I think it's lightning damage, if it interacts with water, do you think that affects an entire body of water?
No, because an entire body of water would be dictated as the entire ocean if you did it that way.
You might have to think about something about dissipation, because in reality, if we were really looking at real-world physics, it would not electrify the entirety of the body of water.
I think if you were going to do that, it would have to be a distance out from the strike area.
The thing that people wrote back is, if you were looking at rules as written, it's a 5-foot wide stretch.
It would be definitely bigger than that, honestly.
Right.
A lightning bolt takes up a 5-foot path, typically. I think in D&D, as the rules are written. Or a lightning breath is a 5-foot, wide thing, typically, or maybe 15-foot cone.
If I remember correctly, lightning bolt 5 feet wide, 100 feet long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is
the
effective area.
So if we wanted to go with that, then we could potentially say that it would affect anything in a 100-foot radius.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
Anything within 100 feet of the lightning strike could be affected, is what I would say.
Okay. That might also mean you. Just to be... just cautionary tale. If that was a ruling on the ground, I might actually say that, just in case you're wondering, are you touching that water when you fire that off? Because that might affect you too. You might electrocute yourself. There's a whole conversation we could eventually have about fireball versus lightning bolt, because I'm sure there's two camps.
Lightning bolt.
Yeah, lightning
fireball
bolt's better for me.
Lightning bolt just affects way more.
Yeah, and I like that it's actually targeted as a line instead of this big ball area. It feels like I have a little bit more control over it. But both of them can set objects on fire that are flammable. If that's possible with something like a lightning bolt, what it suggests to me is that the spell is able to interact with environmental elements.
Yes.
And if that's the case, water is an environmental element, so I understand why people would,
Sure, I mean, you could heat metal on armor, for instance. Yes. You can lightning bolt armor as well. Mm-hmm. But if you want to be pedantic about that, you could say that a lightning to someone in full plate would actually do very little damage because they've got a Faraday cage on them.
You can play around with that idea. I think unless you're playing with physicists, you're not going to get into too many squabbles. But then again, didn't you once play with a bunch of physicists?
Yeah, a bunch of science nerds. We made a railgun.
Yes, I bet that fired even more than 100 feet.
Yeah, that fired the sun.
Perfect.
I would say, if you wanted to play around with spells like that, you definitely could. And I encourage that, honestly. I really do. It's fun when you do that. You did that with the Bard.
Yeah. We played around with the idea of what heat metal might actually do.
Oh, no, I don't mean heat metal at that point. I mean your shotgun.
Oh! Yeah, that. I think we talked about that on the show. I mean, technically it didn't really do any damage to any of the characters because we were past that point.
Yeah.
I think. But yeah, no, the ball bearings.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So the ball
Yeah.
bear. So just to recap real quick for anybody who doesn't know the story, we're going into a house like a farmstead, and there's orcs in there. And my thought process, because I was worried about orcs storming the door, was I'm going to throw my ball bearings down on the ground, 1,000 ball bearings, throw them right down, right in front of the door. And that way they're going to trip and they're going to fall, and some of them did. Next turn...
Very effective.
It was very effective. Then, like, turn or two later, I use Thunder Wave. And Thunder Wave will do thunder damage, but it will also, in the effective radius in front of you, if you fail a saving throw, it will push you back about 10 feet.
Yeah. So imagining this as a sonic spell, with sound waves, if it's got enough force to push someone back.
Right.
Like a person.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's, 5 feet, 10, 15?
I think it was 10 feet. It will push a creature back 10 feet if they fail a saving throw.
Yeah.
But there's a whole thing on Thunder Wave, too, where they say that objects that can be affected by force, something to that degree, will also be pushed back. I think technically 10 feet. But now we have this little problem where there's 1,000 ball bearings on the ground that have just been in the area of effect of a thunder wave that has pushed some of these orcs back 10 whole feet.
Yeah.
So what did we actually do with that? Well, I made a mention of it to you. Hey, wouldn't the ball bearings be affected by this too? And you were like, yes, they would. Thematically, what we ended up doing, even though it didn't really do any damage to the orcs itself, was that those ball bearings ended up going through the back of the house and blowing out all the windows in the house.
Just peppered the back of the house. It looks like someone just assaulted it with a shotgun.
Yeah. Once that was all clear, though, we kept wondering to ourselves, like, okay, theoretically, though, if this was like a damage dealing kind of thing, Like, how would we even calculate that? Even if we say it's 1 damage for every ball bearing, there's 1,000 of those things.
Yeah, I would be like, all right, roll it like 2d20s.
2d20s.
Like, that's how many ball bearings hit this orc.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how much damage it takes. It's dead.
Yeah, congratulations. But yeah, so I think that the idea of being able to interact with environmental elements makes those worlds feel a lot more interactive anyway, and people would want to play in those sort of things. It's sort of similar to when they had like Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, and if you put like fire onto water, it becomes steam. If I put fire onto oil, it turns into a conflagration of flames. Electrifying stuff, you have those different kinds of elements. Technically, rules as written for like a Dungeons and Dragons doesn't really account for that. It doesn't usually say that you have to interact with the world that way, but it would be a really sad missed opportunity if you didn't.
So going back to the original question of lightning versus water, I wouldn't say it would affect the whole area of water, because it could be a large lake, it could just be a small pond, it could be a puddle. It depends on the size that you're willing to like say that water is. I would say it would need to have an effective radius from the point that it strikes. Even through ground, lightning can hit things dozens of feet away, Ground lightning is something you still need to be worried about. Honestly, I would argue that if you're using a lightning bolt, like Thunderstrike down on the ground.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would be like, yeah, anything within 25 feet of this takes a portion of that damage. It's not in the spell descriptor, but it is something that is realistic and makes sense in what a lightning strike really does.
It's mechanically speaking. I guess we should actually think about that from a mechanic standpoint. If we're going to say that, like, lightning bolt and water would not necessarily affect the entire thing. It's not like I can throw some kind of lightning spell on water and the entire ocean electrifies, obviously.
Yeah, all the fish in the ocean are dead.
All the fish in the ocean are dead. That would be a chaos world, more so than having dragons. But if we're going to say that, electricity will transfer through water, how would we work that out mechanically? We've obviously got the 5-foot, line
I think what you'd want to do is have different variables for what it's striking. If it's striking a person or a creature, it does the flat amount of damage to that creature, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're striking water, which has less resistance than like the earth or the air or the rock, let's say it could go like 100 feet, and things struck by it take maybe half damage.
Okay.
You know, they're not directly struck, but that's dissipating, and they take half damage up to the distance that it is a radius out.
The other thing to consider, and I made mention of this a little bit ago, is I imagine if you're using Lightning Bolt and it's in water, this might be some kind of an aquatic campaign. You might be in the water. I think that the key here to remind players of is, for me at least, that is going to also dissipate backwards, because lightning goes everywhere, electricity goes everywhere, and you are behind that lightning bolt. You are likely going to be taking lightning damage as well if you are in the water. That's gonna happen, and it might also affect, I don't know, the team that you are with.
Yeah.
Just so we're aware. Lightning Bolt doesn't really, like, differentiate between, like, oh, these are your buddies. No, because it's an area of effect.
You can, though, if you've got certain classes and perks or feats or metamagic abilities or whatever it is, schools of training, you can have that ability, that spell, not affect people that are friendly to you, depending on your class and stuff.
Yeah, I know what this is. What is the spell class that damage spells are? Is that Abjuration?
I think so.
Okay.
Evocation.
Evocation. Okay, that's what I was thinking about. So in the School of Evocation, one of the features that they have is shaped spells, so that you can actually dismiss any part of your spell. Great if you just want to throw fireballs off, because it's like, I want the fireball specifically to be in this little area right like this. You could do that with Lightning Bolt. But we're going to assume that most wizards or other spell classes don't have that readily accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a special thing. So.
Yeah, I would say in water, for instance, we're not going to get into how water actually like lowers the resistance of electricity on your body, for instance. That would be a lot more pedantic than you need to be for this. But like, I would say maybe in water, the lightning travels up to 100 feet and then deals like half damage, unless it, like, if you're in that radius, because, you know, it's still dissipating, but whatever.
Yeah.
And then, like, through the ground, maybe it only goes, like, 25 feet.
Sure.
And you take a quarter damage. Because ground is not a great conductor. And then rocket wouldn't do anything through. Might explode a rock, but...
Right. But great for ANKEG infection. Infestations. Always thinking about that. I feel like wizards should have gotten into, like, the pest control market of just going around like, I hear you have an infestation over here. Don't worry, I got a spell for that.
Zap. You know, you could do that as a character. To go the whole Dragonheart route.
I don't know. I think that maybe, like, a sorcerer would be a good option for that if we were doing character classes.
Pest control?
For pest control.
Druids.
Yeah, you're right. Druids would be good for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They got poison spells and all sorts of good stuff. All right, so I think we're kind of falling somewhere between the let's make the lightning go everywhere and the rules as written, it only affects the 5-foot space. Probably more in a spherical kind of way because, you know, lightning kind of dissipates out. Maybe I'm envisioning that you have like that 5-foot, 100-foot long sphere. I shouldn't do this with my hands.
Wow, edit that out.
Yeah, that's for the OnlyFans. The 5-foot, 100-foot long, beam. And then there's like almost a diffused area around it, like almost like an oblong around where that beam would be.
Not through air.
Not through air. But
air is a terrible conductor.
Yeah. But
that's why our phone and electric lines work.
Like if we're in water, I kind of imagine it like that one beam that's in the cylindrical, framework of a lightning bolt, and then there's a diffused area around it that's almost like a giant capsule of, the lesser amount of lightning. But again,
it'd be fun if you did that and said, like, if you're in this area, you'll get a static charge. Or, like, you could describe it as, like, your hair stands on end. Maybe you don't take damage. Maybe you just have static electricity in your hair. So,
that would be fun.
Near miss. Also, your hair is, like...
Like, if you roll really, really, really good on your damage rolls, that it has something to do to, like, you've successfully made so much lightning that you are now statified, and everything clings to you. All the balloons just start landing on your head.
Yeah, I'm gonna rub my socks on this carpet and then cast Lightning Bolt. Alright, cool. Your lightning is empowered, do double damage.
Just from rubbing it on the carpet? Wow, that's a pretty good deal. But you gotta prepare that action. That's gotta be like a special action. Yeah.
Special carpet.
Special carpet, you have to do...
a magic item from the secondhand magic store.
Yes! Perfect! Yeah.
It's a carpet of static electricity.
Yes, and when you rub your feet on it as an action, you empower your lightning and thunder spells. Just your lightning spells. Can't have thunder. That's overpowered. But the problem is that then you have to spend like a turn doing the rubbing your feet on the carpet part. And then you can't do the lightning bolt till the next one. Yep. So it doesn't really work out so well for you, because you can only do it every other turn, because you gotta power up your feet.
That's a phrase.
You gotta power up your feet.
But also, you have to discharge yourself from that somehow.
Mm-hmm.
By touching somebody.
Yes.
And it will deal massive damage, so it's like a shocking grasp.
Okay. Yeah.
Or double damage.
That goes in the secondhand magic store. We got to keep a tally of these things so we can write a book together about this.
When you listen back, write it down.
Yeah, I'll write it down. That goes in the list with all the other things we were thinking about. So the question that I would pose to everybody is, how would you like lightning to affect your game world? Does it go beyond the rules as written, and if so, how?
And what happens if players have glass armor like in Skyrim?
And what happens if you have magic carpets that you rub your feet on?
Yeah. A whole new world. Carpet? No, I can't do it. Never mind.
That just added a whole new level to Aladdin.
That's our Aladdin plug for the show.
Yeah, we don't get enough of those in. We gotta do more Aladdin plugs. Plugs like a socket. Back to the electrical. Okay, anyway,